Hi guys, welcome aboard X-Yachts brand new XC47. I've been wanting to get aboard this boat for a couple of years since I saw her at Dusseldorf Boat Show, and I'm really excited to show you around because this is a brand new, not just boat, but a range and concept for X-Yachts. Now X-Yachts, as you well know, build performance cruising boats as well as flat out racing boats, and they've been around for years and have an amazing reputation for beautiful sailing boats. This is the first raised deck saloon that they've built. I mean, there was one 70 odd foot custom boat that they did a while ago, but this is the first production boat that they're doing with a raised deck saloon, which is a real departure for X-Yachts. And the idea is that she still sails beautifully, but just is really connected with the sailing and really spacious and comfortable to live on board for extended periods. Now the XC range has been around for a while. There was a whole range from 35 to 50 foot. They've done away with the old models because they had been through a couple of iterations, and they've come up with a new concept. So the hull is not dissimilar, but it is beamier and higher volume. Compared to the more performance boats, so the Pure X and the X Performance, as well as now the X Racing, they've got a 41 foot race boat. This is much higher displacement, so it's a heavier boat. It's a deeper, rounder hull, so that you can put all of your cruising stuff on and fill the tanks up, and she still sails as she's designed to. We've got a beautiful day for it. We're going to head out, we're going to take our time today, we're going to anchor up somewhere, we're going to have some dinner on board and really see what living aboard this boat is like, as well as sailing her. And I think the sea breeze is just starting to kick in, so we're going to go out and we're going to get some sails up and see what she can do. Let's go. We've just been having a really nice sail. You'll have seen some of the footage that Paul got from the rib and from the drone, and hopefully everything looks all right. It's not as much breeze as we'd have liked to have had today, and now it has officially died. I've got true wind speed of 2.6 knots in roughly the same direction as the tide, which equates to approximately 0. So we're not going anywhere fast. So we've just dropped the spinnaker that officially collapsed a couple of minutes ago. So we've got that down, and we are now heading in to Newtown Creek to anchor up, have a drink, have something to eat. We're going to have a look at how the cruising stuff works on board. So get the dinghy out, put the davits down. I'm keen for a swim because it's quite a hot day, and yeah, and then I'll show you the accommodation as well. And we're hoping, the forecast is promising, that the gradient wind should fill back in towards the start of evening. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. Sometimes it gets even stiller in the evening, but hopefully we'll get a little bit of breeze, and then we'll get the tide with us, and we will sail back up towards Southampton and towards the Hamble, and then I will show you sailing on board this boat. Come on, we can do it. Right, I'm going to hand over to the helm to Gary. Gary Fry is the owner of this boat, and he's been very kind to let us come out for a sail. So he's going to grab the helm. Hey, Gary. And we'll have a look around the cockpit. Well, X-Yachts have put absolutely loads of work in trying to get this cockpit right. They were adamant that they wanted the deck layout and all of the details of this boat to be spot on, so they've mocked everything up. Gary and some of the other owners have been involved in making sure it was how they wanted it, and that it was a layout that worked for cruising and for sailing. Now this is different to most X-Yachts in that all the lines are brought aft, as I mentioned, so there are no lines up at the forward end of the cockpit. You've also got a slightly higher coach roof than normal because of the raised deck saloon. which means that the cockpit sole can come up a little bit as well. So you've got really good views forward here. So the cockpit table is the centerpiece of the cockpit, obviously. It's a really big molded unit, fixed table with nice large lifting leaves here, so you can get at least 6 people sat around that fairly comfortably. Some handholds, cup holders, and then a really big well in here. This is actually an insulated cool box, so if you put some ice in there, you can use that to keep your drinks cold while you're underway. I would quite like a little cubby hole or something, somewhere to put my phones and little bits and bobs while we're underway, but that's a minor detail. Both seats are straight settee seats, nice and long, so you can lie down on them. As I mentioned, you've got this backrest here, so you can lean against here with a little headrest there if you want it, and that's really comfortable and feels quite secure as well. Obviously, we've got all the cockpit cushions on today, which means that you can't quite see under here, but so that is an opening hatch. That gives you access into the aft cabins, and there's the same on starboard side. That's predominantly for ventilation when you're in those cabins. You've also got the inboard hatches there as well, and I think there was some other ventilation for the aft cockpit. Yeah, on the coach roof here, you've got some ventilation for those cabins as well. So you've got 4 opening hatches for each of the aft cabins. Outboard here, another little hidden detail. There's a silver button there. Pop that down, and I've got my rope bin in there, so that's a really good big well for all of the lines that are led aft, so you've got somewhere to put those, and then you pop that up, there we go, and that locks in place, and then that also provides a really nice handhold for moving around the cockpit and keeping things secure. At the forward end on this boat, we've also got a couple of B&G Nemesis repeaters, so you can see all of your instruments up there, and you can customize whatever data you want those to show. And that means that everybody can see what's going on the boat, and it's a really good quick reference if you want someone to keep an eye on the depth or what the wind's doing. And then we've got cockpit cushions here, so you've got a really comfortable supported space here. I wouldn't want to put my shoes on the cushions, but I can imagine sitting in an anchorage and enjoying the view. And indeed, we are going to try that out later, because that is very important. In terms of moving forwards onto the deck from the cockpit, let's take my shoes back on. You've got 2 options. You can step over the top here, and if the if the spray hood's up, then you can grab hold of that. And you've got grip moulding on top of the coamings there, and the lines led aft underneath that. Otherwise, you come out round the back of the helm, and you've got this good big handle to move up onto deck. And then the bimini to hold onto, or the guard wires. Grab rails, when the spray hood is down, the grab rails start in front of the spray hood, but you can hold with the spray hood up. That would obviously give you a couple more handholds for moving forwards. As it is today, obviously it's a beautiful sunny day, so we've got the spray hood down, and that's covered up in this recess, so that's really neat, keeps it out of the way. And on this boat, we've got a full width traveller for the main sheet. Now that's got a purchase, so you can adjust it. It's not led after the helm, so you're probably going to play that a little bit less than you would do on a performance cruiser. But you've still got the ability to drop the main sheet down the track a bit, or bring it up and put a bit more twist in the sail. So for people who like to get their sail set up just right, it's really nice to have that still. Right, let's go forwards. So just as we're coming forwards, a couple of things to point out here. We've got these little gills here, I think X-Yachts are calling them. They're little ventilation things, and just on the inside, so this is next to the galley and also in the heads, you've got 2 really small opening hatches, but what that means is you can have permanent ventilation open all year round, and unless you're in really heavy weather, water's never going to get inside there. So that just means that you've got really good air circulation. When you look at the windows, when we go down below, you'll notice that the windows actually have an internal moulding along the inside of them halfway up. And when you look a bit more closely, you can see here, we've got a black line across the middle of them. And what that's for is that means X-Yachts really didn't want to add in friction when they were leading the lines aft, so they worked quite hard on this. And all of the lines are led aft through this tunnel, which actually goes inside the window. It's entirely sealed in, so no water's ever going to get in. Any water in it will run out aft. But it means that there's only one single turning point. Lines come down the mast, out to the deck organisers, which are under a little flap up there, and then straight aft. So they've only really got 2 turns in them before they get aft, rather than going down, up and over, which adds in lots of friction and makes just handling sails and lines a little bit harder. So they've worked really hard on that, and I think that's a neat solution. Obviously these amazing big windows. It's a bit different for an X-Yacht. You don't normally see windows this size on an X-Yacht. But I think they've made them look pretty sleek and nice, and they've got this sort of diamond shape, which is a theme that's carried on all around the boat. Up on the coach roof then, we've got 4 opening hatches. 2 of them open forwards, 2 of them open outboard, so you can open to whichever way the breeze is coming from. And then a really nice, gently curved, forward-facing window that goes all the way across the boat, just aft of the mast. Now, at the shrouds, you'll notice that they've split the chain plates. They've moved the lower shroud chain plate inboard so that you've got a clear walk through for walking forward, so there's no ducking under the lowers, which is really nice. I like that. And then we've got short jib cars here. They're not very long, so it's only really for adjusting the sort of the shape of the sail when you've got the full sails set. But there is an option, and this boat's got it, to have a removable inner forestay. That's actually on starboard side at the moment, and you take it forward to a pad eye at the bow. Lifting this up then, you can see here that you get full access to all of the lines and the deflectors to lead the halyards aft, but you can adjust the jib car tracks with this little stopper here. They're not towable, so it's sort of set, and then get them roughly right. So if you need to change them while you're sailing, you'd have to put a little tack in, but on a cruising boat that is absolutely fine. Up at the mast then, this boat has got an aluminium rig. You can put in a carbon rig if you really want to save the weight, and we've got in-boom furling, so glass fibre moulding with a carbon fibre mandrel inside it, and then we've got lovely North 3DI sails, so they're good, decent sort of canvas on this boat. The mast is deck stepped, and that means you can have a slightly smaller profile of the mast, and it makes the rig a little bit lighter. All of the lines are led under the deck, and we've got flexi-teak on the deck here, so it's really grippy, feels nice, and it looks lovely as well. A couple more opening hatches then, just in front of the mast. This is for the forward cabin now, and then 2 opening hatches over the forward berth as well as this sort of little X-Yacht signature really, which is a forward-looking window at the forward end of the coach roof. Up on the foredeck, you've got a good big space. I mean, obviously this is a 47-footer, so you've got lots of room. A couple of things to mention. We've got the bulwarks, tow rails are moulded, and they're nice so you can brace against them. And then the deck covering, the flexi-teak, doesn't go all the way up to the edge, and that means you've effectively got a gutter for the water to run down aft. Really neat detailing, like the stanchions just come straight into bolt, so you haven't into these fittings, so you haven't got lots of screw holes and things on deck. I like that. With deck hardware, you've got really good big cleats, stainless steel cleats. I'm sure you could specify fold down cleats if you want to, but this isn't a race boat. Up at the bow then, you can see we've got the anchor locker open because we're going to come into anchor in just a second. This boat's got electric furling for the jib. You could have manual furling with the line led aft and then take that to an electric winch. It's really owner's preference. This does look very neat and tidy up here though. As I mentioned, you've got the anchor locker in there. We've got about 100 meters of 10mm chain in there, and it's only sort of a tiny bit full. So you've got loads of capacity for chain in there. You could probably stow some fenders in there as well if you wanted. And then we've got a sail locker underneath me here. So at the moment this is full of off-wind sails. I think we've got an asymmetric and potentially a code 0 in there as well. Goes all the way down. There are some steps to get in and out. Metal rails either side to hang your lines up and things so you're not losing stuff in there. Fenders have gone aft there in the lazarette because there's loads of space in there, but you could also put that in here. And for a cruising boat, having a locker like this as well as a good big lazarette is absolutely brilliant because it means that all of this stuff just disappears and it's not overflowing and having to be stored down below. This is moulded on the inside as well as on the outside, so detailing wise everything looks really nicely finished, and that then comes down and we can close that. And just forward of that is the pad eye that I mentioned. This is where the removable inner forestay comes to. So if you're in wind, I don't know, 4, 6 or 7 and you've got some serious passage making to do, set that up and you can have a working jib or a storm jib, and I think that makes this a more seaworthy boat because you have got a heavy weather, heavy wind option of reducing your power and keeping going. I'll just close the anchor locker a second. There we go. And then you can see we've got a bowsprit. This is an integrated moulded bowsprit with 2 tack points for a code 0 and an asymmetric. You can see we've got the tack line rigged up for the asymmetric. Hopefully, fingers crossed, when the breeze fills in a bit. And then we've also got it's just a single bow roller for the anchor, and the anchor then stows in the bowsprit there. Obviously, if you were racing, you might not have that, but this is a cruising boat, so having that there is convenient, and hopefully you'll do lots of anchoring and find some stunning places to drop the hook. That's more or less it. Let's head aft and we'll go and find somewhere to do exactly that. Well, we are here, we're anchored up in Newtown Creek, and I have to say I think this is one of the nicest anchorages in this area. We're surrounded by nature reserve and the hills of the Isle of Wight in the distance over there, and the lovely thing about the XC47 is that I can see all of it from down below. We've got these beautiful big coach roof windows with the ducting across it. That doesn't really detract from the view at all, I don't think. And then you've got the nice big hull windows as well. I've got these huge opening hatches, so I've got air billowing through here at the moment. It's a warm day, it's not roasting hot, but it does mean that it feels lovely and light and airy, and I can really enjoy the place where I am, even when I'm down inside the boat. The other thing just to note is that where I'm standing, there are actually, unusually for an X-Yacht, there are 2 sort of floor levels in this boat. Not massive difference, maybe 4 inches or so, but in the galley and for the heads and access to the aft cabins and the chart tables just over there, we're a little bit higher up, and that lets you make the most of these views. And then you step down into the cabins and into the saloon, so you feel like you're sort of in the boat. It doesn't feel dark or cavernous. In fact, I think it makes it feel a bit more homely, and you've got these lovely hull windows as well to enjoy the view when you're down there, so you don't feel like you're trapped and away from the place that you've sailed to. Let's have a little bit of a look around then, because we have got loads of space. And the thing with this boat is they've really increased the volume. So the freeboard's gone up, the beam's gone up, the stern is a little bit wider. So with that, you get a lot more accommodation space. Modern hull design means that the boat is still balanced, still sails nicely. But it gives you lots and lots of extra space. So in the galley, you can see that we've got this proper J-shaped galley. So starting aft, I've got some lockers outboard, just absolutely loads of lockers. We've got the obligatory coffee machine. There we go. Obviously, this boat's got an inverter, which is pretty much always on, and it just gives you mains power when you need it for things like making a coffee. If you're making tea, we've got a cooker tap. So I don't know if you use these at home. Works exactly the same as you want at home, but you can get boiling water straight out of there instantly. So interestingly, you're actually using less fuel, less gas by having to boil a kettle every time you want a hot drink. If you come down on watch, you can just make yourself a hot drink straight away. So actually, the owner, Gary, who's had this boat for about 18 months now, says that's one of the things he's most pleased with that they added on and put into the boat. Anyway, I was just saying we've got a whole load of drawers down there, lockers outboard. So in here we've got plates and cups and all that kind of thing, and then more stowage outboard, little baskets in there to organise it all, and a really good big 3-burner gas oven, gas hob. You can obviously put in an induction one if you want to. Gary liked the simplicity of having gas on board, and as I mentioned, they've got 2 massive gas bottles and they still haven't got through the first one. We've got 2 fridges on board this boat. So we've got a standard top opening fridge there, and just behind me is there we go, is a front opening fridge. This one's also good enough, you could use it as a freezer if you want to, and there are options to have additional fridge space. So you could have that in this unit here, or you can turn the starboard aft cabin into something more of a sort of a technical space. It's already got a washing machine in there as alongside the bunks, but you could add in a workshop space and some more freezer space in there if you really wanted it. You could also put a dishwasher in here. That is an option to have a half height drawer dishwasher if you're not such a fan of washing up. And then outboard, I've got bins down here, so 3 easy access bins. I've got drawers on the forward end of this return unit. They all come out there. And I've also got a double sink here for washing up and putting your drying things in. That's really nice. It's on the centre line, so it's never going to fill up even if you're heeling over, which is a really good, it makes it a bit more seaworthy. And the other thing just to point out is just how big these drawers are. Just watch this. Just keeps on going. So obviously you might want to put some dividers in there, but actually you get loads and loads of space there. There's also a pan locker under the oven, and then we've got these overhead lockers that stretch all the way forwards on both sides in the saloon. So the galley, really nice space to work, really secure for bracing yourself at sea, and you've got views. And just point out the ventilation. So these are the sort of the gills that I pointed out before. So you've got a hatch up here, or you've got the gills just above, more or less, where you're cooking. So you've got a good draft coming through, so you can clear out any smoke or smells while you're cooking your food. And you're never going to get, even on a really rainy day, you can have those open because you're not going to get rain into there. So I think that's a good design detail. Let's go over this way and have a look. I reckon we do the chart table next. Now, before I sit down, I just want to show you the chart table seat. Looks like a normal chart table seat. It sort of is, sort of isn't. If I take the cushion off, you can see that we've got a leather top. And the idea is that this can lift up, and you can lift that out, and you can have that as a tray to take drinks up on board. Alternatively, inside you can see there's lots of papers and things in there, but you can unscrew that seat. That's screwed down in place, but you can unscrew that, and I can move that down into the saloon so that I can have an extra seat or two around the dining table. I've got space there for 6 people to sit around a table. If you take that down, you've got space for 8, a bit of squash, 7 a little bit more comfortably, but there's space then for other people. You would also need to remove that box to access some of the electrical distribution systems, which are in the locker behind there. So that's a little bit more of a job, but it's only 2 screws you've got to undo, and it means that you've got this flexibility of this space. And while I'm here, I'm also going to point out that underneath the chart table, there's a little recess for your toes, so that when you're sitting at the chart table, your feet aren't all squished up and you can actually sit there really comfortably. Coming in here then, I've got a proper forward-facing chart table. I can see out of these windows on either side. I'm a little bit high to see the horizon from here, but this is a really comfortable space. I can talk to people in the saloon while working on my laptop or whatever I'm doing, and I'm not getting in the way. And I can get on with my work. I can also do navigation in here. It's a relatively shallow chart table, but you can see here we've got some leisure folios, so it is big enough to keep a few of your leisure folios in there and do some proper navigation as well. Outboard, we've got the really nice covered cubbyhole and then an open tray here as well, so that I can keep all the little bits and bobs out of the way, as well as in yet more drawers here. You can see that these little openings are really nice, so X-Yachts have made this sort of diamond shape, and that's a theme carried on around the boat. That's the same with the hull windows and all of that. And then we've got those drawers there. Outboard, I don't know if you can see from there, I've got all of your electrical switches. I've also got the Victron Energy electrical distribution system there, so you can see. I've got all of my tank gauges. What power is going where, so I'm putting in 46 watts of solar power at the moment. DC, we're drawing about 142 watts, so you can see exactly what's going where. Batteries are at 99% because we've just done some motoring, and I can also access that on a phone and interrogate all of that. This panel will drop down if I push that in and pop down. There we go. How does it open? There we go. So I've got all of my electronics in there, really good distribution, electrical distribution. It's all very neatly labelled. And then up here, where's the lot? There we go. So then I've got VHF radio a few more instruments in here, heating controls, and my stereo as well. So that's in there. And then if we open up the locker above, I'm just going to unplug that. There's a bookshelf and radio on charge in there at the moment. The other thing to point out, obviously you've got this boxing here that you can put your chart plotter in, and that's really up to an owner what they want to have in. The owner on this boat has chosen an iPad which has loads of different navigation apps on it, as well as mirroring for the chart plotters, and you can control the chart plotters from this screen. So you can do your navigation planning, you can create a route down here, and then you send it to the chart plotters, and then you can work to that. Let's have a look at the heads, and then I'll show you around the saloon. Welcome to the heads. We are in the aft heads. This boat's got 2 heads on board. There's another one in the owner's cabin forwards. I'm sitting on the toilet, obviously still got my shorts up, but this is an electric flushing toilet. You can choose whichever toilet you want to put on this boat, on your boat. This one's a freshwater or saltwater flushing boat, so you don't get all the smells associated with seawater sitting in the toilet. A nice sink outboard. We've got loads of stowage behind these mirrors up here. There we go, so good big shelf space in there. The shower behind the door, which you'll have a look at in just a second, has got a fold out shower screen so that things don't get wet. And one detail that I really like is I've got a really tall wet locker, hanging locker in here, and you can see that it doesn't have a lip at the bottom, so any water that goes in there drips down and drains straight into the shower tray, and then it can be pumped overboard, which I think is a really nice detail to have. I mean, that's a great idea. I've got more lockers just outboard and behind me, and good access to some of the seacocks. Sorry, that's more lockers down there. Outboard of me, there's access to some more of the systems as well. Well, let's come down into the saloon then. So it's a small step down here, and you can see we've got seating to starboard. We've got these really deep soft settees which are lovely, and C-shaped seating around to starboard. Now I'm just going to move these cushions, and before I sit down I want to show you this. Put your hand underneath the backrest, pull it out and push it down, and you can have a nicely reclined backrest there that's a bit more slouchy and a bit more comfortable. So you can sit here, put your feet up, and on the opposite side of the saloon there's a projector screen. So this owner's chosen to have this, a projector screen that you can pull up and have watch your film or TV or whatever you want to do on the big screen, and then you have a projector. I think it just either goes on the table or just behind here. The saloon table here, I can spin this round and open it out into a bigger table, both for dining. So this is sort of coffee table size. I can make this into a bigger table, and I can also drop it down and turn this whole area into a day bed. So you could have a whole family lounging here, watching you at film in the evening, and I think that's a really nice idea. So I'll show you. So obviously these leaves, you've got this sort of diamond shape that folds out. There we go, like that. There we go. So you've got this beautiful oak table, and then there we go, spin it, lock it, there we go, and you've got a really good big dining table. I think that's just lovely, don't you? All right, let's fold that up. Spin it back. There we go, you're back in coffee mode, and you can also then push that down, as I said. Over on starboard side, we've got this lovely deep settee. Really comfy. This is actually a much deeper cushion, and it is designed to be a sort of a lounging settee. I can also imagine that underway, if you turn this into a sea berth, this will be a lovely bunk to sink into. You're really low, you're in the middle of the boat, and you could have a very comfortable off watch here without being too far from the crew on deck or the navigation or any of that. Underneath me, and underneath all of the saloon seating, is stowage. There's all of that space is empty, so we've got life jackets in there, there's spares in that one, loads of stowage space, which is exactly what you want on a cruising boat. Underneath me here, We've got water tanks in the forward part of the saloon and fuel tanks further aft, just where you are. We are looking at, I'll double check, but it's about 600 litres of water and 580 litres of fuel, I think. I might need to double check on that, but really nice to have all of that weight central midships and not sort of outboard, fore and aft and side to side in the middle of the boat, which helps with sailing performance. In terms of stowage, there's also overhead stowage. You've got lockers behind me, lockers up here. On that side, you've got a drinks cabinet behind the back of the sofa. Yeah, so you've got loads and loads of space to put your bits and bobs and your books and everything that you want, and you need that for a cruising boat. We've got diesel heating on this boat, so air heating on this boat, and it's set up for but not yet fitted with air conditioning, so you could add air conditioning if you want. Similarly, that it's got the plumbing for a water maker plumbed in, so if the owners ever do decide to go off blue water cruising and they want to be able to make their own water, then they can add that in without too much hassle. Before we go forwards, I'll just tell you a little bit about construction. Under the floor here, we've got, in typical X-Yachts fashion, a large grid made of galvanized stainless steel, and that connects the foot of the mast there to the keel loads, and then you've got that spreads, absolutely huge grid spreads out across the whole hull to make everything really stiff, and then some of those loads, the shrouds and the loads coming down the sides of the boat are reinforced with carbon fibre as well to make everything super strong without making it too heavy. And particularly for X-Yachts, every X-Yacht is equipped with single point lifting. So in the hatch, in the deck head above us, there's a little circle, and you can see a screw top thing on the coach roof outside. You lift that off and you can drop your crane lifting strop into the centre of the boat, pick it up by the keel, and the whole boat comes up, so you're not bothering with all of the strops and having to have big travel hoists to get your boat out. In the UK you might not need that, but in the Baltic I think that's a much more common way of lifting boats. Right, let's go forward into the owner's berth. On this boat, the owner's cabin is very much the forward cabin, and you can see why. This is a beautiful space. We've got a full-size bed here. It's pretty much all rectangular, and you can sit against the forward bulkhead, sit up in bed and enjoy the view out of your hull windows. They've put in lots and lots of stowage in here. In fact, this owner didn't originally opt for the overhead lockers, got the boat and decided they wanted it, and they've retrofitted them. X-Yacht sent out the kit for the lockers, so you've got all of your stuff in there, which means that you've got loads and loads of room up here. They're on gas struts, they're all lined up nicely, and there's fiddles in there as well, so things aren't going to fall out when you open up your lockers. And then where you're standing, we've got a row of 3 upright lockers, and they've got shelves and hanging space, and then beneath each of them is a stack of 3 drawers under each one, so we've actually got 8 drawers here. So loads of room. And then underneath the bunk there's a big drawer that pulls out. That's got clothes in at the moment, so that's a good big deep drawer. And if I lift this bed up, that's on a gas strut, you can see here that there's a tray space on top of where that drawer is, as well as loads of room around it. So there's loads of space to put stuff in. Forwards of that is the retractable bow thruster, so that goes in there, but you've got access to all the rest of this space. On port side there's another locker, so a tall locker. This one is fitted out with shelves. I'm sure if you wanted that as a hanging locker for your dresses and suits, you could have that as well if you wanted to. And then we've got an ensuite heads, so let's have a look in there. Right, well, join me in the shower. Here we've got a folding shower screen, as we do in the other heads, like so. So that keeps everything nice and dry in here. And then we've got a fore and aft ranged toilet, and that's a freshwater and seawater flush toilet, and a similar arrangement to the main heads of lockers behind the mirrors outboard. So we've got lots of room in there, and you've got locker space under the sink, and then access to the systems outboard of the toilet. So in terms of a usable bathroom space, this is really nice. And then your 2 guest cabins have got the aft heads. So as the owner, this is your own cabin. and then we've got one opening hatch above us here. The other head, the aft heads, has some outboard as well as the overhead opening hatch. Sorry. But anyway, you've got good ventilation in here and plenty of room for this to be a long-term usable bathroom. Okay, let's go and have a look at the aft cabin. But just while we're on our way, I just thought I'd point out headroom in this boat. Now, actually in the galley area, the lowest headroom anywhere on this boat is in here. I've got 1.98 meters of headroom. And then if I go into the saloon, I've got 2.20 meters. In the forward cabin, I've got 2 meters 5 centimeters, and in the aft cabin I've got something like 2 meters 10 centimeters. That means that to hit your head anywhere on this boat you're going to have to be over 6'6". So this has got a boat with serious amounts of headroom for the taller sailors among us. But let's step into this aft cabin here. Now this cabin has been set up with a double berth, but if you can see down here, we've actually got an infill in here. So that's a little infill that takes up that space, and then there is a gap between the two bunks. When I show you the starboard aft cabin, you'll see what the two bunk option looks like, and then you can mix and match, change it up as you want to, and then the infill simply comes up and makes a backrest on the outboard side, so that you've got a sort of a comfortable sitting backrest there if you want to sit like that. Again, stowage under both of these bunks. I think we've got some batteries under the inboard one in this cabin here. And then plenty of stowage at the forward end here. So good, huge, big, deep drawers, in fact, and a locker in there. And then in these lockers, I've got hanging space and shelved space as well. Got some waterproofs in there at the moment. So there's loads of room. And then outboard of the bunk as well. Here, you've got another well in here, so you can keep books and all your clobber in there as well. So you've got more than enough space for all of your cruising things in here. Obviously this is a bit more of a guest cabin rather than an owner's liveaboard cabin. Ventilation wise, I've got loads in this cabin. I've got a small one going into the cockpit. I've got one that comes up underneath the cockpit seat there, and then there's one in the deck head as well. So I've got loads of ventilation, plus 2 more windows that don't open but give you more light and more views out. So it's a really nice space to be in, and there's plenty of room to move around and get dressed and climb into bed. Right, the last cabin to show you is the starboard aft cabin, and this one is set up as a twin berth. And you can see here that the infill's been taken out, it's been put outboard, and that just goes against the backrest there. So it's actually quite a nice little space. And the walk through here that I mentioned, there's actually recesses for your toes, so you can sit here and there's space for your feet, so you're not having to twist your legs sideways to get in. A couple of other nice little details. If I lift this cushion up and the seat base up, you can see here we've got obviously stowage, but then they've put in these canvas bag baskets so that it's not just a really deep locker in there. I can lift that out and I've got access to more stowage underneath, so it actually helps keep your stuff organised if you're on board for a little bit longer. There's more stowage at the aft end of that. There's something for your small items in between the two bunks between you there, and then you've got a similar arrangement under this bunk as well. Access similarly into engine bay, generator space, and if you did opt for a stern thruster, this boat hasn't done, but if you did want a stern thruster, that will go into this space aft. As it is, there's a couple of systems in there, but on the whole that could just be used for stowage space if you wanted it. The other thing to mention in this cabin is that the main big locker, you can have that just as a normal locker, but on this boat they have put in a washer dryer machine. There we go, don't know if you can see around there. So you've got a washing and drying machine, and that means when you are cruising for a number of weeks you don't have to worry about finding a laundrette. Obviously that's going to use a bit of power, a bit of water, but it's easier than dragging bags and bags of washing through the streets of Falmouth looking for a laundrette. Or wherever it is you're going, and it means you can just be a bit self-sufficient for a little bit longer. A similar number of opening hatches in here, and stowage bins and all that kind of stuff, but it's just nice to see that you can have two. So if you had 2 children who don't want to be sharing a double bed, or you've got 2 guests who don't know each other so well, you can put them in this cabin and then you both get single beds, and I think that's a really nice option to have. Right, let's have a quick look in the engine bay. So lift that up on gas struts. and you have to duck down a little bit to get under here, but actually you've got generally really good access. We've got an 80 horsepower Yanmar. That's the only option for this boat, but as we saw on the water, there's more than enough power from that, and that's with a sail drive. In terms of access to systems, we've got all the fuel filters that we need, alternator, drive belt. We've actually got twin alternators on this boat, so you can put out plenty of power. The only thing that I noticed is a little bit tricky to get to is the water strainer for the water cooling is at the aft end of the engine, so I can't easily see down into the top of it without opening it up. But if I go through the port aft cabin, then that's going to be a lot easier to do. I would like to see that further forwards just to make accessing that a little bit easier. But otherwise, that's very neatly laid out. There's a light in there that you can turn on if you need it, and I can get to all of the systems I need. And then you've got the calorifier above it, and there's a separate space after this, where it's the adjoined space, but there's another space for the generator. So if you want a generator, that will go further aft in there. Right, a few last details in the accommodation. Firstly, just to talk about the construction, I said that we've got this really big galvanized grid. I'll show you that in a second. But this boat is built in vacuum infused epoxy resin. So that's really stiff and really light. Often it's built in vinyl ester or polyester boats, but X-Yachts only use epoxy because that is the sort of top quality that you can go for. And then around the keel, around where the matrix connects, and the sail drive and all of that, you've got solid laminate rather than foam core laminate, but it's all vacuum infused to keep weight down and keep everything nice and stiff. Right, let me show you a couple of little details that speak to the quality of the boat and just in terms of the usability of the systems when you're out for longer periods. That could be your wine cellar if you want to. It's not. I'm meant to show you inside this one. There's lots of floorboard panels here. But in here, if you look around underneath your feet there, you've got one really big seawater inlet and a manifold that can go off to 4 different systems. At the moment, you've got the seawater pump for the heads, and we've got the generator seawater cooling. The engine has its own water intake, and then in here we've also got a water-cooled fridge. But that seawater manifold is quite impressive, especially because it means that you can add in your water maker and your air conditioning without needing any more seacocks. Over on this side, we've got some isolators for the generator. This boat has got a generator on board, and these are the remote isolators there, so you don't need to go to the generator or to the batteries to turn things on and off. That can all be managed from the switch panel. Inside this one, I'm sorry, lifted that the wrong way. Right, you've got loads of systems here, and you can see just how deep the bilge is. And one of the things with this hull shape is it's a deeper rocker, a more rounded hull, so to make it more sea kindly. But it also means you've got loads of space for water pumps, valves for switching between water tanks, engine shut off valves, all that kind of stuff. And then you've got some electrical distribution systems on this side, so there is really good access to all of the systems that you need access to. Underneath me here, this boat's got 3 fuel tanks on board, so the diesel goes into the day tank, and the generator and all the systems that need diesel take it from this small day tank, and that is filled up from 2 larger diesel tanks. You've got one to port and one to starboard, and then we've got a couple of water tanks as well. One is, I think, under the saloon, and there's one under where you're standing, so I'll show you that quickly. I think that is in here. There we go. Yeah, there we go. There's one of the really good big water tanks, and that means that it's nicely central in the boat, and you can see that it uses that space really well. And then the last thing I wanted to show you is some of this galvanized steel frame. So that lifts up like so, and you can see here that you've got access to the galvanized steel frame. There's an aluminium subfloor under the floorboards, but below that, this galvanized steel frame is what takes all of the loads for the keel and the rig. And you can, if you poke in there, you've got access to the keel bolts. And then below that, so below the level of the metal, is built into the fiberglass in the keel stub is a sump for the bilges, so that any water in there doesn't sit around the metal but sinks down further. And then we've got two big water strainers, so you've got an electric, a manual and an electric bilge pump, and you've got separate water strainers for that, so that you're not having to clear strum boxes all the time. You can actually just clean those water filters straight out, and it lifts up, so when you're sucking water out of the sump, that's where it's going to end up. Obviously with a keel step mast, you're going to end up with a little bit of water down there, but it's very easy to pump it out, and your pumps aren't going to get blocked because you've got those filter strainers there as well. There we go. Right, so we are on our way back to the Hamble now from Newtown Creek. We stopped for our supper. I had a little bit of a swim. We put the dinghy in the water, saw how all of that works. It was good to have a proper look around down below as well. Now, we were hoping that the wind would have filled in. It did seem to have filled in for about 20 minutes, and now we are back with very little wind. I've got a boat speed of 2.5 knots, true wind speed of, let's have a look, 4 knots. So the fact that we're still moving is encouraging. But it would be lovely to have a little bit more wind to test this boat in. We did get up to about 12 knots of wind across the deck earlier on today when we were off Cowes, and actually there's a little bit of wind just filling back in now, so I'll try and keep concentrating on that as well. When the wind did get up to sort of 12, 13 knots apparent, that was sort of 8 knots of true wind. And the boat really quickly got up to 6.9, and I think we topped out at 7.2 going upwind. So that's boat speed through the water. Obviously we had the tide and wind together, so that didn't help increase apparent wind at all. But still the boat seemed really keen to go. In anything above 6 or 7 knots, you're going to be sailing at quite useful speeds. And even now, true wind speed is 7 knots, 10 knots across the deck, and already the boat speed's just climbing over 5 knots. Yeah, so this is a boat that wants to sail. It feels like this hull is pretty slippery, pretty easily driven, albeit she's not a super lightweight performance cruiser. In terms of what she feels like on the helm is precise and light, and the boat is surprisingly responsive. Now, light ship, she weighs just under 15 tons, 14,900 kilos, something like that. And when this boat was lifted out recently with full tanks and everything on board, it came to about 17 tons. So there's a reasonable displacement there. This isn't a lightweight boat that's going to get thrown around, and that's exactly what you want for longer distance cruising. The other thing that X-Yachts have built in is you've obviously got this round canoe body, deep hull, deeper rocker, and slightly longer overhangs. And that means that as you load the boat up, as you put more stuff in the boat, you fill your tanks up, the characteristics of how the boat sails aren't going to change a huge amount. And that's exactly what you want. You don't want something that suddenly slows down as soon as you put your dinghy on board. You want really good consistent speeds. Now, Gary reckons that for passage planning, they reckon on about 7.5 knots in this boat, and I'd say that seems pretty fair. She's reasonably weatherly. She's not as weatherly, i.e. she doesn't point quite as high as something as maybe one of the X performance range or a pure X yacht might do. So we're getting about 32 to 35 degrees to the apparent wind. It was really difficult to judge tacking angles because in light winds and really strong wind, that sort of throws off the angles that you're actually sailing over the ground and that you're tacking through. But that said, this is a boat that will sail well, and right now I'm not concentrating, and I'm doing about 35 degrees to the apparent wind. We are sailing at last, hooray! The wind has just filled in. Literally, we just got a line of wind that's lifted the true wind speed to the heady heights of 9 knots. But that is enough because now we've got 13, 14 knots of wind across the deck. We're pointing at about 32, 33 degrees to the apparent wind, and we are doing 7.5 knots. A couple more knots of wind. We just had 10 knots of true, and that had us up at 7.8 knots through the water. The boat has responded really quickly to the gusts coming in, and she's really nice to sail. I've just stuck on a little bit of backstay because we had a little bit of weather helm, but a tiny bit of backstay, and that's corrected that. so now she's really nicely balanced and she's slipping along very easily. We've got very flat water, but the hull is designed to cope well with chop. I can't vouch for that. We haven't had chop today. We've been through a couple of ferry washes and things like that, and there was no indication that she was inclined to slam at all. But you've got a really nice deep V shape in the forward sections of the hull, so she should take seas really comfortably. And with her sort of moderate displacement, actually she should just keep on ploughing on through whatever the sea throws at her, really. But for now, I'm going to enjoy the sunset, enjoy this bit of breeze, all 9 knots of it, and have a lovely sail back to the handle. So we are just on our way back up the Hamble River at the end of a lovely day. It's a shame we haven't had a bit more wind, because I think this boat would really relish a decent breeze. That said, we've had up to 10 knots of wind and we've got 7.5 knots of boat speed out of her upwind. So this is a boat that responds really well. Anything over 8 knots and she's really starting to shift, although she still kept on moving in 4 or 5 knots of wind. And I think that is the sign of a good boat that's got a slippery hull, easily driven, and a decent set of canvas on her, that she will start going in those speeds and still be responsive and controllable. I think that's a really good sign, particularly for a boat like this that is a slightly heavier displacement boat. She weighs 17 tons as we've sailed today, 15 tons light displacement. So this is a boat that is designed to look after you at sea. She will be solid and planted. She's not designed to plane, but she will keep on trucking away at decent speeds for long passages and eat up the miles that way. Now, this is a departure for X-Yachts with these beautiful windows all around us, and I have to say I think it is successful. Whether or not you would come to X-Yachts for a deck saloon is up to you, but I think that the concept that they've developed has worked really well. It's clear that they've put a lot of effort into getting all of the details right, and there are loads and loads of really innovative little details, and I think that shines through in every space in this boat. They've clearly thought about it very hard, and there are lots of boats out there where that really isn't the case. Build quality feels good, construction feels really solid, there's solid wood where you would want it, everything is nicely finished, and they've done it well. You would expect that from X-Yachts, but this is their X-Cruising range, and I think they've elevated the sort of the quality and the standard of finish quite well on this, and I've been really impressed with the boat that I've seen. Now, that's going to come at a price. Unsurprisingly, ex-VAT base boat, you're looking at about £850,000 depending on exchange rates, and this boat, as we've tested her today, would set you back roughly £1.2 million including VAT. Now, if you've got that sort of money to spend on a boat, there are a few other boats out there that you might be looking at, but I think the X-Yacht should definitely be on your list, particularly because you've got this sort of crossover between deck saloon and performance cruiser. She's entirely blue water capable. She can take you off on some serious adventures. You've got space for 6 people on board in real comfort. You've still got a washing machine and loads of stowage room. You could turn that into a technical room if you wanted even more of that kind of space. But this is a boat that you can live on board really comfortably and enjoy sailing her in relatively light winds, and she'll look after you in heavy winds as well.